The small town of Auburn, Alabama, woke up to shocking headlines on a humid September morning. Local high school senior Marcus Taylor, 18, had been arrested. The charges were serious: attempted murder and aggravated assault. But as reporters dug deeper into the story, they discovered something unexpected. The quiet, academic achiever who'd never been in trouble before had a hidden past that would turn this from a simple case of violence into a story that would force the community to face its darkest shadows. The twist? Marcus wasn't the villain in this story. He was the victim who finally fought back. And his target wasn't random. It was the son of the town's most respected family, hiding secrets that would shake Auburn to its core. Marcus Taylor grew up in a middle-class family in Auburn. His father worked as an engineer at a local manufacturing plant, and his mother taught elementary school. From an early age, Marcus showed promise. He was bright, kind, and always eager to help others. His teachers described him as the kind of student every teacher dreams of having. But by 6th grade, Marcus began to realize he was different. While other boys talked about girls, he found himself developing crushes on his male classmates. In conservative Auburn, Alabama, this realization filled him with dread. He tried to hide it, threw himself into his studies, joined the debate team, and helped his mother teach Sunday school. Maybe if he was perfect in every other way, he thought, no one would notice what made him different. The bullying started subtly in middle school. Small things at first: whispered comments, excluded from lunch tables, accidental shoulder checks in the hallway. Marcus couldn't even pinpoint when people had started to suspect he was gay. He hadn't told anyone, hadn't acted differently, but somehow they knew. Bradley Winston, the star quarterback's younger brother, led the torment. The Winstons were Auburn royalty, old money, big donors to the school, pillars of the community. Bradley had everything: looks, money, popularity, and a mean streak a mile wide. What no one knew then was that Bradley had his own secret, one that would eventually explain why he targeted Marcus with such vicious determination. High school should have been a fresh start, but Bradley made sure that didn't happen. The bullying escalated. Marcus's books were destroyed, his locker was vandalized with slurs, and anonymous social media accounts posted vicious rumors about him. Marcus tried everything. He told teachers, who dismissed it as boys being boys. He told the principal, who reminded him that Bradley's family had just donated a new gymnasium. He told his parents, who suggested changing schools, but Marcus refused to be driven away. He documented everything, kept a detailed diary, saved screenshots, recorded incidents on his phone. Nobody knew why he was so methodical about it then. They'd find out later. In his sophomore year, Marcus found an online support group for LGBTQ+ teens in conservative communities. There, he met others like him, including someone who would change everything, another closeted teen from a nearby town who went by the username Truth Seeker. They began private messaging, sharing their experiences, supporting each other. Truth Seeker understood exactly what Marcus was going through: the fear, the isolation, the daily torment. They developed a deep online friendship, becoming each other's lifeline. What Marcus didn't know was that Truth Seeker was much closer to home than he imagined. Senior year brought a brief respite. Bradley seemed to back off, focused on college applications and maintaining his perfect image for scholarship committees. Marcus dared to hope things would get better. Then came the homecoming dance. Marcus hadn't planned to go, but his best friend Rachel insisted on taking him as her date. The night started well. They danced, laughed, and almost felt normal. Then Marcus went to the bathroom and found Bradley waiting for him. But this time was different. Bradley wasn't there to bully him. Bradley Winston, tormentor and golden boy, broke down in tears. He confessed everything. He was Truth Seeker, Marcus's online confidant for the past 2 years. He was gay too, deeply closeted, terrified of his conservative family finding out. "I treated you horribly because I hated myself," Bradley sobbed. "Seeing you, watching you be stronger than me, it made me hate myself even more." Marcus was stunned. 2 years of friendship online, 4 years of torment in person, it was too much to process. He fled the dance, his mind reeling. The next day, Bradley acted like nothing had happened. When Marcus tried to talk to him privately, Bradley responded with the worst bullying yet. He and his friends cornered Marcus after school, beat him badly, and filmed it all, threatening to post it online if Marcus ever told anyone about their bathroom conversation. Something in Marcus snapped, not just from the physical pain, but from the psychological torture of it all. The person he'd trusted most online had been his worst tormentor in real life. Every kind word, every shared secret, every moment of support had been tainted. After the brutal beating and humiliation behind the school, Marcus spent 7 days meticulously planning his confrontation with Bradley. Each night, he sat in his room, scrolling through years of saved messages between himself and Truthseeker, feeling sick to his stomach at how Bradley had manipulated him. During those 7 days, Marcus barely ate or slept. His parents noticed his withdrawn behavior, but attributed it to typical teenage moodiness. His mother did try to talk to him one evening, seeing the bruises he couldn't completely hide, but Marcus brushed it off as a fall during gym class. On day 3 of his planning, Marcus created a private email account and composed a message to Bradley. He attached screenshots of their Truthseeker conversations, along with documented evidence of the bullying. The message was simple: "Meet me behind the gym after your football practice on Friday. Come alone, or these go public. Everyone will know both sides of Bradley Winston." Marcus knew Bradley would come. The quarterback had too much to lose: his reputation, his family's respect, his carefully constructed image. What Marcus didn't plan for was his own emotional state deteriorating over those 7 days. On the morning of the planned meeting, Marcus found himself in his father's garage, staring at the hunting knives mounted on the wall. He took one, a medium-sized blade his father used for deer hunting. Marcus had never held a knife as a weapon before. He told himself it was just for protection, just in case Bradley brought his friends. He wrapped it in a towel and put it in his backpack. Throughout that Friday, Marcus went through his classes in a daze. He turned in his history paper, answered questions in calculus, and ate lunch with Rachel, all while feeling like he was watching himself from outside his body. Rachel noticed something was off and tried to talk to him, but he managed to convince her he was just tired. After school, he waited in the library until football practice was nearly over. He watched from behind a tree as other players left the field, waiting until Bradley was one of the last ones out. Just as planned, Bradley headed toward the gym alone. Marcus spent a week planning. He used his saved documentation of Bradley's bullying as leverage, threatening to expose everything unless Bradley met him alone to talk. Bradley, trapped by his own actions, agreed. They met behind the school gym after football practice. Marcus brought a knife, not to use it, he would later say, but to feel safe. He just wanted to talk, to understand why, to find some kind of closure. But Bradley panicked when he saw the knife. He attacked Marcus, trying to grab the weapon. In the struggle that followed, both boys were stabbed. The confrontation lasted less than 10 minutes, but its impact would echo through Auburn for years to come. When the ambulances arrived, they found both boys bleeding on the concrete behind the gym. Bradley had a deep wound in his abdomen and another across his right arm. Marcus had defensive wounds on his hands and a slash across his chest. Both were conscious, but in shock. The first police officer on the scene, Deputy Sarah Martinez, found Marcus sitting calmly on the gym steps, still holding his phone. He looked up at her and said, "Everything you need to know is in here." Then he slowly placed his phone on the step and put his hands behind his back. Bradley, despite his injuries, was hysterical. He kept switching between threatening Marcus, "My father will destroy you," and begging him not to reveal their online conversations. "Please, Marcus, please don't tell them. I'll die if they know." The school went into immediate lockdown. Parents received frantic text messages and started arriving in waves. News vans appeared within 30 minutes, their satellite dishes rising above the parking lot like mechanical flowers. Bradley's father arrived first, in his Mercedes-Benz, shouting about pressing charges and calling his lawyers. But when he tried to approach Bradley on the stretcher, his son turned away and whispered something to the paramedic. For the first time in his life, Bradley refused to let his father take control. Marcus's parents arrived minutes later. His mother collapsed when she saw him in handcuffs, but his father remained eerily calm. He asked only one question: "Did you start this, son?" When Marcus shook his head, His father nodded and said, "Then we'll deal with it." The evidence collection began immediately. Officers found the knife, marked with both boys' blood, near a drainage grate. They retrieved Marcus's phone, which was already unlocked and opened to a folder labeled Bradley Truth Seeker. The school's security cameras had caught the beginning of the confrontation, though not the actual fight. The footage showed Bradley arriving first, pacing nervously. Marcus approached, holding something in his jacket. They talked for several minutes, their body language growing increasingly agitated. Then Bradley made a sudden move toward Marcus, and both boys disappeared from the camera's view. That night, two families waited in different areas of East Alabama Medical Center. The Winstons huddled in a private waiting room, their lawyers already strategizing damage control. Bradley's father made calls to his connections in the DA's office, while his mother sat silently, reading through printed copies of her son's messages as truth seeker that the police had provided. In another wing, Marcus sat handcuffed to a hospital bed, while a doctor stitched up his chest. His parents waited outside with their court-appointed lawyer, a young public defender named James Chen, who had received Marcus's case by chance. Chen spent hours that night reading through the evidence on Marcus's phone, his expression growing grimmer with each screenshot and video. By midnight, #Justice for Marcus was trending locally on Twitter. Someone had leaked parts of Bradley's bullying history, and students were sharing their own stories of witnessing his behavior. The Auburn High School class of 2023 Facebook group exploded with heated debates and revelations. The local news led with the story at 11 p.m., carefully avoiding names due to the ongoing investigation, but highlighting the tragic incident involving two seniors at Auburn High School. They interviewed a crying Rachel, who revealed the years of torment Marcus had endured while maintaining good grades and a kind demeanor. In the hospital, Bradley had surgery to repair his wounds. When he woke up, he made two decisions that would change everything. First, he refused to press charges against Marcus. Second, he asked to speak to the police without his father present. Marcus spent the night in a juvenile holding cell, though he'd be charged as an adult. He slept surprisingly well, as if a huge weight had finally lifted from his shoulders. When asked later why he seemed so calm after such a violent incident, he would say, "For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend anymore. No more secrets, no more fear. Whatever happened next, at least the truth was out." The next morning, Auburn woke up to find their community's carefully maintained image of perfection shattered. The story of Marcus and Bradley forced them to confront uncomfortable realities about bullying, sexuality, privilege, and the price of silence. It would take years to process all the ripple effects of those 10 minutes behind the gym, but the process of change began that very morning. In the following days, news would emerge that several teachers had resigned, citing guilt over ignoring Marcus's previous complaints. The school board called an emergency meeting to revise their bullying policies. A group of students organized a sit-in to protest the administration's history of protecting wealthy students from consequences. But perhaps most significantly, other students started coming forward with their own stories of being bullied, harassed, or forced to hide their true selves. What had seemed like an isolated incident between two students was revealed to be the breaking point of a much larger systemic problem. The incident behind the gym lasted less than 10 minutes, but it sparked changes that would reshape Auburn's social landscape for years to come, proving that sometimes it takes a moment of violence to break through years of enforced silence. As detectives dug deeper, they found Marcus's extensive documentation of the bullying. His phone contained hundreds of screenshots, videos, and recordings. But more importantly, they found his conversations with Truth Seeker, all of them showing Bradley's double life. Other students started coming forward. It turned out Marcus wasn't Bradley's only victim. A pattern emerged of Bradley targeting other students he suspected might be gay, all while struggling with his own sexuality. The investigation also revealed something else. Bradley's father, the respected businessman, had a history of covering up his son's violent behavior with generous donations to the school. Auburn split into two camps. Many supported the Winstons, seeing Marcus as a troubled teen who had attacked a popular student. Others, especially after learning about the years of documented abuse, rallied behind Marcus. The local paper began investigating the school's handling of bullying complaints. They discovered that multiple reports about Bradley had been buried or ignored. The principal resigned in disgrace when it came out that he had destroyed evidence of previous incidents in exchange for donations. Marcus's case became a flashpoint for discussions about bullying, self-defense, and the treatment of LGBTQ+ students in conservative communities. His lawyer argued that years of documented abuse, combined with Bradley's psychological manipulation through the online friendship, had created a perfect storm of trauma. The prosecution initially pushed for attempted murder charges, but faced mounting public pressure as more evidence of the bullying emerged. Bradley's other victims came forward, sharing similar stories of torment and intimidation. 3 months into the legal proceedings, Bradley had a public breakdown. During a preliminary hearing, he confessed everything: the years of bullying, his own struggles with sexuality, the online deception, and his father's role in covering up his behavior. He revealed that his father had threatened to disown him if he ever embarrassed the family by being gay. His attacks on Marcus and others had been his desperate attempt to prove his straightness to his father. The district attorney's office, faced with the full scope of the situation, agreed to reduce the charges. Marcus pleaded guilty to assault with mitigating circumstances and was sentenced to 2 years of probation and mandatory counseling. Bradley faced charges too for assault, harassment, and cyberstalking. His father was charged with witness tampering and obstruction of justice for his years of covering up his son's actions. The case sparked major changes in Auburn. The school district implemented comprehensive anti-bullying policies with real enforcement mechanisms. The new principal started a LGBTQ+ student support group, despite initial community resistance. Marcus, through his counseling, began to process years of trauma. He spoke at schools about bullying and the importance of documenting abuse. His story helped other students find the courage to speak up about their own experiences. Bradley, after intensive therapy, finally came out to his family. His father disowned him as threatened, but his mother surprised everyone by choosing to support her son over her husband. She filed for divorce and became an advocate for LGBTQ+ youth. A year after the incident, Marcus and Bradley met again, this time in a therapist's office as part of their mutual healing process. Bradley apologized for years of torment. Marcus shared how Bradley's online deception had damaged his ability to trust. They didn't become friends, but they found a way to forgive, not for each other, but for themselves. Both recognized they had been victims of a toxic culture that forced people to hide their true selves. Today, Marcus attends college in California on a full scholarship. He studies psychology, hoping to help other teenagers dealing with bullying and identity issues. He still speaks at schools, sharing his story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of bullying and the importance of being true to oneself. Bradley works with LGBTQ+ youth in Birmingham, using his experience to help others avoid his mistakes. He and his mother run a support group for families dealing with coming out in conservative communities. The Winston family's influence in Auburn has waned, but something better has taken its place. A more inclusive community that's learning to protect its vulnerable members, rather than its powerful ones. The case changed how many Alabama schools handle bullying, particularly when it targets LGBTQ students. Several districts now require documentation of all bullying complaints and prohibit donations from influencing disciplinary decisions. More importantly, it sparked conversations in conservative communities about acceptance, mental health, and the damage caused by forcing people to hide their true selves. The number of LGBTQ+ support groups in Alabama high schools has tripled since Marcus's case made headlines. Marcus's story reveals several hard truths: how bullying can drive someone to their breaking point, how internalized homophobia can turn victims into perpetrators, and how money and influence can corrupt institutions meant to protect students. But it also shows the power of documentation, the importance of speaking truth to power, and how even the darkest situations can lead to positive change.